Yes, man. This section, this section is powerful. And I'll give you a quick hit, real quick on verse number 19. It says, "And the stupor of death." Now, the interesting thing about that is this: that word, the stupor of death. If I pulled it up, I could show you. But the Arabic word, matter of fact, um, give me 1 second. See if I can pull this up real quick. Um, Give me 1 second. That. Let me pause this for. I'm gonna address this real quick, but we're gonna take it from the top. But where it says, "and the stupor of death," this word, this is all in Arabic. This is one word, the stupor of death. You see this word right here, the Arabic written right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the Arabic symbol for S. So this is S-A-K. This is R. This is A. So the Arabic word is sakra. Sakra. That's what stupor of death means. One of the meanings of sakra, stupor of death, is intoxication. So it's almost as if it's referring to intoxication as a stupor of death. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes. Brother Luman, I was thinking too, um, could that be like when you're in a spirit of darkness, like you don't have any light, like um, being blind, like basically shut down from Allah's presence or either remote from his presence.
Okay.
I don't know. That's what I
No,
was thinking.
no, that's good because you could look at it like this. So the first meaning, it means to shut, to close, to lock. So there goes a Dianetic term, a lock. Okay, what is a lock? A lock is a moment of uh, um, anguish, right? Mental anguish. Y'all with me? Yes, no, yes, no.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm hearing you, sir.
And then the second meaning is to be drunk, to become intoxicated, um, dead drunk.
I'm ready.
So we could say, based on your definition, Sister Jaslyn, that because like when a person is dead drunk, there's no thought about God, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But I remember studying this not too long ago. But if we take this from the top, if we take this from the top, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and certainly we created man, and we know what his mind suggests to him. Let's stop and look at that for just a quick second. That's a powerful ayat because if your mind is suggesting something to you, that means you and your mind are two separate entities, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay. So when it's saying what his mind, that's dealing with a possessive pronoun, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the mind and the individual are two separate things.
You know what, Brother Lukeman, as you're saying that, it's just bearing a witness that before without truth, without the truth, without a lost truth, that's why we're mentally and spiritually dead.
Mm-hmm.
And as being mentally and spiritually dead, there's no telling what we allow our minds to suggest to us, because do you know that life vein is truth. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't have it, if we don't have truth, we don't have life. So, you know, with the absence of truth, then there's no telling, or like you said, the aberrated mind, is no telling what kind of darkness we can suggest to ourselves that
Mm-hmm.
cause us to succumb to a stupor of death.
Yes, ma'am. Because I'm quite sure we've all been in that dark place before. Trying to see. I know I have studied this before. I'm trying to see if I put it into my notebook here. Let's see. It's not there. I got to get this a little more
The
organized.
reason why I was that this kind of stood out to me, a lot of times, like when I first used to read the Quran, having dealt with a lot of persecution or whatever, or just negativity, external negativity,
Mm-hmm.
that was my focus. But as I'm maturing more spiritually, I'm looking at what is Allah trying to say to Sister Jocelyn. What responsibility does Sister Jocelyn have to what the word says? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just striving more to apply it to me, so that that I can deal with my own self-improvement. It's not what someone did to me, but how unjust am I being to myself, and how am I going to correct being unjust to myself?
Yes, ma'am. That is perfect. That is perfect. Let's see. I got to get this a little more organized, but we can work without it. I thought I might have had it right here close. If not, we'll just continue. I have all the Arabic already cleared. I just got to see if I put it. I'm trying to get more organized with my studies so I can put everything together, or I can access it more quickly. However, I still have to work on that. Okay, we'll go without it. Okay, so this ayah is describing that the mind is something that we possess that's separate from who we are. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, at least that's how I'm perceiving it. I mean, does anyone else perceive it differently, or does anyone else have a comment or an opinion or anything on this on the first ayat? Is y'all just gonna leave me out there by myself, huh?
Well, if we've been taught to eat the wrong food, that's going to has caused us to be other than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course, like you said, if the Master Muhammad knew that we're other than ourselves, then someone else had control of our minds.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that Mr. Farrakhan wants us to deal with this Dianetics, so that we can correct our minds, so that we can more quickly return to ourselves. In addition to the supreme wisdom, like you said, you were tying it together,
Mm-hmm.
the tech and the supreme wisdom together, so that we can return to being ourselves, and we can grow towards becoming the gods that Master Farad Muhammad came to make us to become. And until we evolve to that,
Mm-hmm.
other than anything outside of that is other than ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Now, in the tech, the way we could align this ayat with the tech is the word mind in Arabic is nafs. It means mind, it means soul, and also means spirit. And I'm trying to think if I can remember what the word suggest is. And as we're going along, I'll try to see if I can pull up the Arabic terms really, really quick, and we can throw them out there. But this kind of is explained in the tech. You've heard of what's called the genetic entity, correct? Have you ever heard of the genetic entity?
I have not, sir.
Okay. So you have what's called you have the reactive mind. And the best way I can explain this is like this. The reactive mind is basically what we have acquired in our lifetime. Okay. The things that were done to us, the suffering we have personally experienced in our lifetime. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The genetic entity represents what has been passed down through the generations.
Mm.
So when you look at the Bible in the book of Mark, chapter 5, it said Jesus came across an individual that lived at the foot of the mountains. He lived in a cave, and he was cutting himself with rocks. And Jesus approached him, and this individual came running out. And I'm gonna put it in modern terminology. This individual was crazy as hell. So Jesus said, "Well, what is your name?" He says, "My name is Legion, because we are many." So when you look at the fact that he said, "My name is Legion," that's a singular name because we are many. That means that one individual was composed of many devils. Does that make sense?
Mm. Wow.
Perfect sense.
My name is Legion because we are many. So he had multiple personalities. And then it said, if you read the book of Mark, chapter 5, towards the end, it said that then the people were amazed because when they saw the Legion, they knew how crazy Legion was. They said, but when they saw Legion again, he was cleaned up in a new garment, and it says, in his right mind at the right hand of Jesus. Okay.
Wow.
But here's the thing that's interesting, and this is just the way I interpret that scripture. When you read the book, fifth chapter of Mark, it says that Jesus removed the demons and then put the demons into the swine. I know you've heard that story before, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now
Yes.
the way that I perceive it, just my opinion, if you take the demons from an individual and you put it into the swine, it is almost as if you're taking the evil out of the person and you're putting it where it belongs. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, in other words, how many of us have people in our past that we would consider them to be like swine? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So now taking the demons out of Legion and put them into the swine is like an auditing. We carry our own behavior with us and we look upon ourselves in a negative way. But the negativity that we manifest, it doesn't belong to us. It was something that was done to us, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what does the processing do? The processing shows where the behavior that we manifest or the circuits that are in our mind, the things that we say, those things are removed and they're placed into the swine, meaning through processing, we are shown where that behavior belongs. Does that kind of make sense? Have I lost anyone?
No, sir.
Okay. Because the things we do now as adults and the things that we say now as adults are based on things that were done to us and things that were said to us. They don't belong to us. So in processing, the auditor really is casting out the demons into the swine, meaning pointing out to the individual who is really the source and the root of the behavior and the circuits that we're dealing with. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then it says, when the two receivers receive, sitting on the right and on the left, Now, if I remember correctly, when the word right and the word left are cleared in Arabic, and I want to verify this, if I remember correctly, it is almost as if it's making reference to the analytical and the reactive mind, two different ways of thinking. Okay. He utters not a word, but there is by him a watcher at hand, meaning everything is recorded, right?
But also, isn't it? Would that be representative of the angels? Like we have angels on both sides of us recording.
We could say that. We could say that. But now, what if we would say that the recording angels, what if we looked at that through the lens of the tech and said that the recording angels are the reactive mind and the analytical mind? Because when you look at the scriptures where it talks about, and on that day, there'll be some that get their book in their right hand and they will rejoice, and some will get their book in their left hand and they will be have to experience a painful chastisement. What if the book in the right hand and the book in the left hand represents the reactive mind and the analytical mind? Does
So
that
when you say that, Brother Lukman, are you saying that we succumb to one or the other? Like we allow the reactive mind to overpower the analytical mind, or the analytical mind has control over the reactive mind? I don't know.
Yes, ma'am. Because when you look at processing, what's really taking place? In processing, the auditor is taking a person back into the on the time track to deal with those painful situations, right?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
The pain is being removed from that event, and that event is being refiled in standard memory. So you have the memory of the event, but you don't have the emotion connected to it, correct?
Yes, sir.
So the way that this just the way this is, the way I perceive it. It's just my perception. And I'm gonna try to see if I can pull this up while we're talking from the Arabic perspective. When you look at receiving your book in your right hand, what if that represents receiving your mind with all the painful stuff removed from it? And what if receiving your book in your left hand is you receiving your time track in your mind with all the pain still present? In other words, if we don't follow the instructions of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan with regards to the tech, if we're not confronting the things from the past, all the things from the past at a certain time are going to accumulate and distill back to us in the form of insanity, because we're not doing the work to confronting the stuff from our past so it can be refiled in standard memory without the emotional pain connected to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's powerful, Brother Lukman.
Okay, so that's just the way I look at when I did the word clearing. That's just my opinion of when we go through auditing, what's taking place is our book is being given to us in our right hand.
Brother
And
Lukman, as you're speaking to me, you're reinforcing minister's purpose for introducing the tech. I mean, every time we come together, you just reinforce why if this is necessary. It's
Mhm.
he made a statement. Of course, everything that he says is gospel, we but the messenger said don't take everything at face value. So I appreciate how
Mhm.
whenever you continue to um expound on what he says, it just reinforces that what he instructed us to do is right and exact. So
Yes,
we
ma'am.
thank you for that.
All praise is due to Allah. So what I try to do is I try to take what the minister says. See, in mathematics, you have something called extracting a derivative. And I look at the minister as the prime derivative. He went into the messenger's teaching and he extracts principles from past, present, and future. Meaning he dug into the minister's words are Allah is a scientist who speaks in the language of formulae. Then he said the Most High Elijah Muhammad is a second scientist who looked into the formulae and broke it down, correct?
Go ahead.
And
Yes,
then
sir.
he said he was the lead wire that would break it down even further, the complex truth, so that even a fool will find it hard to make a mistake. Those are his words. But now we can go into the minister's words and break them down even further. Because we're not supposed to take the minister's words on face value, even though we could, because we know it's pure truth, correct?
Yes, sir.
But knowing the truth and then being able to explain it in our own language. So when I come across these ayats, I'm like, my purpose is, how can I take this and tie it into what the minister has already taught us? How can we use the Holy Qur'an as a proof? My thought is, from a mathematical standpoint, I want to be able to prove what the minister is saying using mathematics, science, and using the Holy Qur'an, so that if the time comes, um, I'm not just, some people might say, oh, you're just repeating what the minister said. I don't want to just be able to repeat it. I want to be able to find out from that person, what language do they speak, meaning what religion, what is their background? And then the whole goal is, with the help of Allah, to show them, to prove to them what the minister is saying in their own language. Because doesn't the scripture say that Allah always sends a messenger to a people speaking their language?
Yes, sir.
So if I'm talking to someone who's a mathematician, why would I go to them speaking Bible?
Go ahead.
So if their language is mathematics, I got to speak their language. If someone is their background in physics, then I have to speak the language of physics. If someone's a Buddhist, I have to speak the language of Buddhism, correct?
That's right.
I can't go to someone who's college educated, who may have nothing to do with religion or spirituality. So I said, well, what is your degree in? What is your concentration in? Oh, your concentration is in chemistry. Okay, let me explain this in the language of chemistry. Because now I'm speaking their language.
That's right. Go ahead.
Okay.
But
Mhm.
another thing.
So then it's so now when you look at ayat number 16 in conjunction with ayat number 19. See, we know what man's mind suggests to him. So in that day and time, you have what's called the shock of the hour. The word shock in Arabic is zalzala, and the word zalzala means grief. So now what happens in this day and time when people experience grief? What do? Remember, we said stupor of death in Arabic is sakara, and it means intoxication. So 9 times out of 10, when an individual is experiencing severe grief, what is done? Alcohol, drugs, sugar. Because sakara is where you get the word sukra from, right? Y'all with me?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Okay. When people are upset, it's alcohol and drugs, correct?
You got that
That's
right.
right.
But ayat number 19 says, and that is what thou should shun. Instead of using alcohol and drugs when we're going through a moment of grief, Allah says, seek assistance through what?
Patience and
Patience
prayer.
and prayer. So patience and prayer should be our intoxicant.
That's correct.
Okay. And then it says, and the trumpet is blown. That is the day of threatening. Now, I want to hit that real quick because that word trumpet is very significant. When you look at the word trumpet, the Arabic word is suri, suri. And that is, okay. So now watch what the word trumpet is in Arabic. Remember, we're looking at these ayats like equations. And we're doing the word clearing. We're using the text as a tool to go deeper into our Islam. And when you look at the word suri and the trumpet, let's see how it lines up with what it is that we're discussing. So here's the word suri, sur. Where you at? There you go. Suri means to illustrate, to make pictures. It means to conceive of in the mind. It's talking about pictures in the mind. Now, when we say pictures in the mind, isn't that the same as, and it also means false, deceptive, fallacious, artificial, fictitious, or imaginary? Now, if you combine the concepts of deceptive and pictures in the mind, isn't that called a service facsimile? Y'all with me? Do we know what a facsimile is in the tech?
Come on.
I forgot, Brother Lukman.
Okay, a facsimile, just think of a fax machine. You take a piece of paper, a letter, you put it in a fax machine to make a copy of it, right?
Yes.
Okay, so a facsimile, when we go back in the time track, the facsimile represents the memory. It represents the event that took place, but it's not just the event that took place, it's the event that takes place along with all of the perceptics, all of the conclusions that were made, and all of the emotions that were present. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, definitely. Thank you.
When we're taking someone back on the time track, we're aiming for the facsimile. We're looking for that event. And that's why we say, are you in the kitchen? We don't say, were you in the kitchen? We say, are you in the kitchen? Because we want them in the event in present time, correct? And we say, what do you see? They might say, I see the refrigerator. What color is it? Okay, that is why it's so important when taking someone back on the time track to speak in present time, not past tense, but present tense, correct? Everyone follow?
Come on.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We're basically doing time travel.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So when it says that and the trumpet is blown, could we say, and then it talked about that is the day of threatening. Could we say that at a certain time, events are going to take place that are going to key in engrams that we're not aware of that are still dormant? Because some of us may have engrams right now that just haven't been keyed in yet.
Brother Lukman, that's what I was thinking as you were talking.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying that we don't know?
We don't know.
Wow.
You ever seen the movie, the military movies? They have the landmines, and you have to navigate them real carefully, or you get blown up.
Yes, sir.
What if our mind, we still have landmines that haven't been detected yet? The engram. Just a couple of weeks ago, there was a train station. I can't remember where it was. They had to shut down everything because somehow they found an old bomb. It was someplace in Europe, I think it was. They found an old bomb from World War II that had been basically lying there since World War II. Someone came across it. They had to shut everything down and go in there and retrieve that because it was still active.
Ooh,
So I
that's scary.
used that as a demo kit to explain all of us on the Zoom meeting right now, and anyone who might listen to this in the future. We might still have dormant engrams that just haven't been keyed in yet. And under the right circumstances, when things take place in our life, it keys in, and then we go off the deep end and we don't understand why. It's because we didn't take the time to go back on our time track through the processing to find all these dormant landmines that are still present. Does that make sense?
Yes, and Brother Lookman, again, it's just reinforcing why Minister wants us to do what he asked us to do, so
Mm-hmm.
we won't experience that what you're describing,
Mm-hmm.
and that our books can be handed to us in our right hand as opposed to our left hand.
Mm-hmm. So now when you
Now that's critical, brother.
mm-hmm. So now it says, then it says the trumpet is blown, the day of threatening. So now when you look at the word threatening, let's look what that means in Arabic, because that adds another piece to the equation. Um, the Arabic word is wa'ada, and it means to menace, a rendezvous, an appointment, a fixed time, something that happens unexpectedly or suddenly, a threat. So now let's, in those that have done the auditing, you know how that sometimes you take someone when the event is too painful, you do what's called a valence shift.
What is that, brother?
A valence shift is this, brother Craig. But so if I was auditing you, and let's say we found an event on your time track that was extremely painful, so painful that we couldn't work through it. And brother Eric, if I'm incorrect, please correct me. If this event was so painful we couldn't work through it, and let's say this event included other people in the room, at the time that this
Mm.
event took place, I would say, shift into the valence of your father. Okay. And then what would happen is now you're looking at this event from the perspective of your father. So we're able to still get data from this event, but you're not in your own valence anymore. You're observing observing it from another standpoint. That is one of the tools that's used in the tech. It's called a valence shift. Correct, Brother Eric?
The valence is it's a sort of duplication of somebody else's attitude or
Right.
behavior,
Right.
and they threaten you with it, and now you so confined in that threat. So now when you are experiencing a time, you will be dealing, speaking, or acting exactly like the person who used to frighten you do.
But
Uh,
well, what I'm saying is,
but you better shut up. And now when you're talking, you're going to be doing those things. All these are valences that you are duplicating, even
right.
though,
What I'm saying is specifically is during processing, you shift the person to another valence to allow them to get through the event and get past the pain because it's too difficult at that time for them to deal with in their present state. You shift them into the valence of people that were present to observe that event from another viewpoint, correct?
correct. And that's why but you have to ask the person in that audit who was the most dominant person in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And now once you know, and you may ask, what does it say? Or what did he do?
Mm-hmm.
The person said, and now when you get to that point, you can shift that into that valence, as you said, because you already know there is something there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we have to understand a few things in Dianetics. We talk about engrams, but engrams really is the last bit that you're going to, because certain engrams are so charged up, you cannot access them because they are accompanied with something you call lock. You got the secondaries. You what else? And all these things show the degree of contagion. In other words, for that person is experiencing. So now that's why you say you're going to do a log scanning. You do log scanning. You sometimes you ask the file clerk to find the engram that is mostly related to the case. And it may not give you the engram, but at least it will give something that is similar because secondaries are very so charged up. That's why you have to treat them as an engram, but they are not engram. So as you are eliminating those secondaries and even those, I said it earlier now, it want to come out of me. The locks, all right? And now you find there is a little alleviation from the person. The person become a little bit brighter. And that tells you are approaching the demon that you're looking for. Oh, okay. Also, this is another one that we have to put in our vocabulary, the demon circuit. All these things are the same thing that we use in religious order, except that they are called differently in the text. And as you were talking earlier, to show to demonstrate the link between mathematics and or science and a person that you're speaking to, our teacher and God tell us no man can be let me read it perfectly for you. No man can be successful in teaching a people that cannot speak clearly the people's language. As you say, if you're speaking to a mathematician, you have to be able to relate to him mathematically. You're speaking to a scientist, you have to be able to speak some scientific word with it. Other than that, you won't be able to really communicate. You'll be talking, but not communicate. Okay. And the other thing is also, I forget what was it. Ah, I forget it, but it's in the same link, but it escaped my mind. So all of that you're saying, you are on the right track, and that's why I love to listen.
Praise due to Allah. Thank you, Brother Eric.
Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah.
Sister Ania.
Yes, sir. The comment that you were making about the shifting into another valence, it made me think of children that have been traumatized, and especially if they've been sexually traumatized, they're not able to speak about it. So the counselor will oftentimes give them a doll so that they can relate what has been done to them through acting it out with the doll, or sometimes they'll have them draw pictures. So I liken that to what you were saying about shifting it from themselves to another, in this case, the doll or the pictures, the drawings, so that they can express themselves, because it's too painful for them to address it in reference to themselves.
Right. Yeah, that's a perfect example. It's easier to show on the doll because it's not them particular, and it allows them to show it. That's a perfect example, Sis Ania. Thank you.
Brother Lookman, would it also be like when you're speaking in third person? If you don't want to say that you're talking about yourself, then you tell a story, but you use another person to tell the story?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's another example that works perfectly. Most definitely. Because it's easier to deal with something when it's not home. Like a person might say, well, what if I knew someone who, so you bring up what's called a hypothetical. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And what you're really doing is you're really referring to yourself, but you don't want to refer to yourself. So, I have a friend who is going through X, Y, and Z, boom, boom, boom. It's the same concept. Okay. So now, so now let's do a quick summary. Okay. So we know what man's mind suggests to him. Okay. Allah already knows. Did he not put a ruler in the earth that would cause mischief and shed blood?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Allah is already aware of this whole design. That's what study guide number 10, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So now there's something in us that is put there to basically give us a test to prove the God in ourselves. Would that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And when you deal with from the standpoint of the tech, one of the reasons why people are aberrated is because they can't control their facsimiles. In other words, when the whispering of the slinking devil whispers, that individual obeys. The whispering devil is stronger than the self-accusing spirit. Does that make sense?
Yes,
That's
sir.
powerful.
Okay. So now you have the two receivers receive. Now, this is just the way that this is my opinion. I look at that from the standpoint as a formula representing the analytical mind and the reactive mind. And before we get off, I want to share with you and provide some stable datum as to why I came to that conclusion. He utters not a word, but there's by him a watcher at hand. Everything is recorded. Allah says in the Holy Qur'an, everything, small or great, is recorded in a book, correct?
That's right.
And it
Yes,
says the
sir.
same thing in Dianetic Book 1. In other words, what book do you possess that records everything? Your standard memory. So everything is either recorded in the analytical mind or the reactive mind, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
What's the difference between the analytical mind and the reactive mind?
that's a very good question. When a person is in an accident, while that person is unconscious, the analytical mind shuts off and the reactive mind turns on. And the reactive mind is recording everything that's taking place when that person is unconscious. So when that person becomes conscious, they're not going to remember all the things that were said and done when they were unconscious, but the recordings are still there. And whatever was recorded in the reactive mind during unconsciousness becomes a subliminal suggestion to that person. So, in other words, if you're in a car accident and someone says, don't move your arm, if you're unconscious, someone says, don't move your arm, the reactive mind takes that comment literally. So now when you wake up, your arm might not be broken, but now you have trouble moving your right arm. Why? Because there's a recording that says don't move your right arm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So your reactive mind takes it literally. So now you walk around for years and your right arm is just stiff. And you're like, why is my arm so stiff? I I
Wow.
I can't move my right arm. So now
Mm.
you're voicing the circuit. If as men, we got whoopings and someone says, stop crying before I give you something to cry about. Now what happens? We grow up and as men, we don't cry. Why? Because in our mind, we think, I'm not crying because I don't have nothing to cry about. What are we doing? We're voicing the circuit that was recorded during the time of pain, the whooping we got, right?
Mm.
So there's statements that we make. Those are just the verbal circuits that were recorded in a time of pain. Someone can say, stay right here, don't move. And then the reactive mind takes that literally, and then that person in life, they stay where they are and they don't move, meaning what? They never progress. They don't get any promotions. They don't try to better their life. They don't try to excel in anything because their reactive mind is telling them, stay right here, don't move. And they're taking it literally. The person that's on the street right now, sleeping in the street that's homeless, they might have a circuit that's saying, stay right here, don't move. or someone told them you'll never be anything. You'll always be a loser. And so now why are they out in front of the store holding the cup trying to get change? Because they feel that they're never going to be anything and they're just going to always be a loser. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now it says the trumpet is blown. Okay. The trumpet is blown. That is the day of threatening. In other words, clearing that in Arabic is describing the day of threatening is a day where, I'll give you a case in point. The fire we just did on Monday. There were individuals living in the house on Monday, and after we got knocked down to the fire and everything, we had to when the scene is safe, we can escort individuals in so they can gather their belongings. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And some people, whatever was in that apartment was all they had. And some people lose everything. Okay. This one brother, the only thing he had that was retrievable was we found because he was asthmatic. We found his inhaler and his book with all his baby pictures in it. And that was all. Everything else was a total loss.
Wow.
Now, let's look at this. And the trumpet is blown. That is the day of threatening. We hear about what took place out west with the fires, and I've seen enough fires to see the result of now Red Cross has to come. The individuals, everything they've had is gone. All their clothes are gone. All their belongings are gone. Part of what we do, let me just go back here for a second. Part of the process as a firefighter is what's called salvage and overhaul. So even when we're fighting the fire, we're trying to do as little damage as possible because we know this everything in this room has sentimental value. Okay, so we just don't randomly just go break stuff just to break stuff, even though it looks like that. Has they ever thought that? They see firefighters breaking windows and they wonder why they're breaking the windows. Have you ever thought that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The reason why we break the windows, and you're going to see this parallels with actually processing. As the fire increases in a confined building, the temperature increases. As the temperature increases, the smoke increases.
Oh.
And as smoke increases, visibility begins to decrease. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. As the smoke increases, the smoke begins to drop down like this. The smoke begins to descend. And as it's descending, the visibility is totally decreasing. When it starts to descend, from the time the fire starts to the time of flashover, flashover is when everything in the room auto ignites at the same time. If we're in the room at that time, we auto ignite with everything else in the room.
Oh.
Oh yeah, that's real. So what happens is the room will go from anywhere from 500 to 1,000 degrees.
Whoa.
So visibility decreases, temperatures increasing. So when we break the window, the flammable gases are coming out, the heat is coming out, and the smoke is coming out. And that's called venting. So if the heat is coming out, the flammable gases are coming out, and the smoke is coming out, then the visibility increases, the temperature decreases, and the danger decreases. Well, isn't that what auditing is? When a person is apparated, isn't processing like venting? You know how someone says, I need someone to vent to?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So in processing, what's happening? The person is being
Release it.
relieved of flammable gases.
Mm,
Visibility is getting better.
mm,
The emotion is decreasing, meaning the heat is decreasing. And as the heat is decreasing, the person's vision begins to increase and then you keep going back to the beginning, go over it again until you can get them to laugh about it, right?
mm.
If they laugh about it, what does that represent? The fire's out.
Really? Mm,
Fire's out.
man.
Okay. So we're breaking the windows to get that
Wow.
stuff out. And that buys us more time so that it doesn't spread. Because what happens is this, and this is contagion by aberration. What happened Monday is we caught the fire because fire will jump from one building to another.
Yes, sir.
And we caught it. If you look at the other building, you can see where the corner was, you can see where it was starting to heat up. Okay, because fire is transmitted in 3 different ways, but one of the ways it jumps. But anyway, we're trying to save everything in that room we can save. So once everything is done, we go back in, and I know the one family, they had like a little altar. That's one thing in the Latino community. When people pass away, they have little altars in memory of the family members. And so I gathered as many of the items from the altar, the pictures, the things with sentimental value, because everything else is getting tossed out the window. Everything is getting thrown out. But we try to save the sentimental items. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let me go back to this. Go ahead, Brother Martin.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I was just thinking about when you was talking about the firefighters coming in, because I worked for the Jersey City Housing Authority 31 years before I retired, and it was like second nature. The if there's someone trapped in our apartment, we automatically know, call the carpenters, because the fire department is going to either destroy the door or the door bust. Automatic. It's like when I get the call to come in for emergency, someone locked in, and if it take me more than 20 minutes to get to the site, I already know that it's some damage to the door before I even get there. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And the other thing I wanted to comment on a while back, he was talking, I wanted to reflect on where the messenger said to the minister, I don't need you to repeat I'm paraphrasing, pretty much regurgitate the teachings as I taught it. I need you to break it down so that the everyday common person can grasp it. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Real quick, we were talking about the derivative. When you're extracting a derivative in calculus, that means you're extracting a truth with respect to past, present, and future. So you're able to identify a mathematical truth outside of time. And the word derivative comes from Latin, which derivere, of the river. It means, to reach into a river and extract something out, right? Derivative. In there is the word river. The minister represents mathematically what I would call the prime derivative. He was able to go into the teachings and extract truths with respect to time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And in mathematics, the first derivative identifies velocity. We are supposed to study the minister's words and extract the second derivative. And in calculus, the second derivative identifies the rate of acceleration. So our job is to take the minister's words and then break it down even further so that the masses of the people can begin to accelerate. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Praise be.
Praise be to Allah. Sister Ania.
Okay, just from it, I'm writing down rate of acceleration. Okay, so spreading the word. Okay. My question is a question.
Mhm.
When you talked about the venting process,
Mhm.
what happens? What would happen if the venting process started and then was shut down? You talked about you break the windows to reduce the heat and reduce the smoke.
Mhm.
So, and I'm asking that question in relation to the auditing process, the venting process, when
Good question.
a
Okay.
person starts the venting process, but then the auditor says something to shut the process down in a sense. I think you know what I'm getting.
That's an excellent question, Sister Ania. Excellent question. So what happens is this: if you have a room that is tightly sealed, what happens is because fire needs oxygen to exist. Okay.
Mm.
If a room is tightly sealed, let's say you have a person and they're being audited, and you don't get to the seat of the seat of the fire, you don't get to the root. That would be like shutting the door on a room, but you haven't put the fire out yet. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but now what happens is this. If you don't put that fire out and you shut the door, the fire is going to diminish. But as soon as you open the door, you get what's called a backdraft, meaning that thing's going to light up with aggression. This is why in auditing, we don't stop until we clear. I think that's where you're going with that. You don't stop the process. Oh, it's getting late. No, if you have something you're working on, you complete that before you end the processing. Is that where you were going with that, Sister Ania?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm. Because if you leave that active, then what you're doing is you're leaving that person and that engram is still activated. You're producing a mental backdraft, if that makes any sense. Does that answer your question?
It does. When can you explain so we can get more mass on it? Can you explain in terms of the fire process, the backdraft?
Okay, so what happens is this. When a room is sealed up, one of the signs that we look for is we look around, and but I'll pull up a video so we have mass on this. And I'm gonna explain it to you, but then I'm gonna show it to you. And we're gonna use that as a demo because everything that takes place in a structure fire, I can show you exactly how it takes place mentally, and I can show you firefighting techniques in Dianetics Book 1, and I can show you Dianetics Book 1 in firefighter techniques. One of the things we look for is right around the window. If the window hasn't been broken, there might be little cracks, and you'll see little puffs of smoke. It'll look like the house is breathing. Okay, it's one of the signs when we read the smoke that we identify what's taking place inside the building. You'll see puffs of smoke going out, and you'll see smoke being drawn in. The fire's trying to breathe. The fire's suffocating, just like we suffocate, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is that fire is trying to breathe. So it's trying to pull from wherever it can to get air. It's almost like the fire is a living entity. This is straight up Iblis right here. Okay.
Mm.
And so what happens is whatever fire is in that room is going to die down. And one way to look at this, if you light a candle and then you put a lid over the candle, you see the flame start to die down like this until it goes out, right? And then it'll blow. Okay. But in a room, that fire is going to decrease, and might just be in a state of smoldering. Because what the fire is trying to do is trying to survive on what little oxygen is left in that room. So it's like the fire, it's almost like the fire saying, let me burn the least amount in order to maintain my existence until I can find some air. Does that make sense?
Wow.
Okay. That's how the reactive mind works.
Wow.
As soon as you open that door, what did you just introduce into that room?
Mm.
You just gave the fire a buffet. And so you just fed it, and it happens so fast that it becomes explosive. And what happens is, even in a building, we have to be careful of which windows we break. Because as soon as you break a window, that's like breadcrumbs to a fire. The fire is going to go so if the fire is in the living room, we break the windows in the living room because now the fire will stay and eat right there. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if the fire is on the second floor, you see the firefighters, they're cutting holes in the roof. You've seen that before, right?
Yes.
Okay, you cut the hole right above the fire because the fire will stay right there. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep the fire from moving. So you feed it. Let's cut a hole right here. The fire's going to stay right here, and then we attack it, and that's how you put it out. But if the fire's here and you cut a hole over here, guess what the fire's going to do? It'll go through the whole house, and I'll show you the video. But
Okay, so now how would you okay, let's just say if you're dealing with a situation, not necessarily in reverie, but just let's just say you're in a conversation with a person and then they start venting about something, you know, and it's like, I just got to get it off my chest, and they're just going on and on and on and on and on. And then you're trying to get them to come out of that state. So you make a comment to them that you think that will, you know, kind of bring them out of that state, you know, help them to shift on. So I'm trying to think of that kind of situation.
Well, as long as you don't
in relationship to what you just said about how the fire is trying to keep itself alive, and then you're breaking the windows if it's in the living room, you're going to break the windows in the living room, not somewhere else. How does that translate to a situation when a person is venting?
Okay, that's a good question. So the way I would translate that to a person venting is this. First of all, we know we don't evaluate, we don't invalidate, because that will be like putting more fuel on the fire instead of putting water in the fire. Opening something in another room, that would be like trying to process in the words of the tech, that would be identifying the wrong target. And there's another thing called over processing someone. Once you've identified what's taking place here, you got to keep them in that event, because then, you know, they'll try to bounce or misdirect. Does that make sense? In other words, you want to keep them confined to that room where they are and get them to, you're trying to reduce the charge, right? The charge is like the fire in this whole instance. Okay. And we'll say the person on their time track is the arsonist. They're the one who started the fire. It's a good way to look at it.
Yes.
Okay. Whoever originated this engram, this circuit, that's the arsonist. Okay. But as an auditor, we got to maintain control because that fire, that individual is going to try to bounce, deny, misdirect, group, or hold. They're going to use the engrammic commands to try to, and the fire does the same thing. Fire will try to jump and travel in other parts of the building. The pre-clear, the reactive mind of the pre-clear is going to do the same thing.
Mm.
Because the reactive mind is working on the concept of survival as well, right? And that's what happened with us. The fire started in the rear portion of the house, but by the time I got there, I was in the front part of the house. We pulled the ceiling, and you could see the fire was ripping right. It was like right above us. It had traveled from the rear of the house inside the wall. Fire is sneaky. It's just like the reactive mind. It travels through the empty void spaces, and it tries. It's like a predator.
Damn.
But the reactive mind does the same thing. But part of the process of learning the tech is you have to learn the science of how the fire is going to travel. I'm telling you, auditing and firefighting is the same thing. It's the same doggone thing.
One thing I find in what the question she asked you, Brother Lukman, was the auditor also, by interrupting the PC, is telling me that it's being stimulated.
Yes.
That means there is some commonality between what the PC is saying and what the auditor has already experienced. And sometimes you find the auditor falling asleep on in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because that can confront.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that we all have to be aware. And that's what sometimes when the person is talking, let him talk. You can, because he's only venting himself.
Mm-hmm.
The point is, he feel, I feel better now that I get that off my chest.
Mm-hmm. That's a good. I'm glad you said that, Brother Eric, because it's almost like the person listening, and again, you're referring it to an auditing session,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm relating it to both because sometimes these things spring up spontaneously just in regular conversation. You may not be in an auditing session;
Mm-hmm.
it may just be in regular conversation, and the person is venting. They
Mm-hmm.
just need, like you say, I need a sounding board, or
Mm-hmm.
and then what Brother Eric was saying is that the person listening becomes re-stimulated, and so
Mm-hmm.
they try to redirect the conversation to something else. So but by doing so, you're shutting the person down who's venting,
Mm-hmm.
and then that you create that backdraft that you talked about.
Right. Brother Eric or Sister Shayla, if you can, I can't remember this term, but the term was something they taught us in book 1, where because the auditor, based on being re-stimulated, didn't want to confront it in that person because they had the same problem, the auditor would redirect away from it. There was a specific term used for that. Do you remember that term? Sister Shayla, do you remember that term?
No, I do not. I do not. But here's one thing that you do is you bring the person. If you're in a conversation and they're just rambling, just bring them to present time. Just ask them, excuse me, stop. Forget. Can you tell me what time it is? Simple. Bring them to present time. You will interrupt the circuit immediately. And they don't feel invalidated. You don't give it as a command. You just give it like curiosity, like, what time is it? Interrupt. But interrupt without invalidate. That's easy. That anyone can do that. And when someone, this is my experience, when someone is, and you can't, the reactive mind is not going to give up. So if you can't access the engram, just kind of get the charge off and get some of the locks. And you can put that back in and go back later, because you may not, especially someone that has can't see, can't hear anything, no visual, you are dealing with someone who is highly aberrated. They won't combust by you not going all the way into that engram. But if you are following the commands, if you are given the commands, you will not hurt that person more than it already, I don't know if that's the correct English, they already are or is. If you go out of the perimeters of the command, now we're interjecting ourselves. And that is like, just think of it like making a pie. And you know how we put a little bit of this and a little bit of that? But it's not the standard pie. It's a pie. But if you stay within the command and follow your CS, you will be fine. It don't mean that you can go back in another session and get that. But some of them you won't get. And I just want that to be very, like, for us to understand that every time you go through this, it's not going to be as you predicted it would be. And I'm sure as we get better at this, we will encounter. And I'm just a book one. I'm not an expert at this, but I know that LRH have stated in many of his books that once you access an engram and you have I'm paraphrasing, and you follow those commands, you will not hurt that person more than what it already were. And I think that's very important that we understand that, because people are very guarded with their engramic mind, and they think that if you are not a PhD in this, you are going to hurt them. He states it very clear. No, you won't. If you stay within the confines of what you're doing. If you wander off and do your own thing, then there'll be a problem.
And another reason why I'm asking the questions and trying to get clarification and learn is because as we get further into this dark hour, we may be faced with situations with our people, and even with believers, maybe, that with them not understanding what's going on, they may go off, dealing with crisis situations, dealing with the severe weather and all of the crisis situations that may come about. People can go off. They lose it and they go off. And we can, if we don't know the right techniques in what to say to them at that time, we can make it worse for everybody, for ourselves, for them, and for everybody else that's close by. So that's another reason why I'm asking these questions too.
I think you have to understand also, in conversation, in auditing or anything, everybody always have a two side in this. Mostly when we come to auditing, one, you are looking for what has been done to that person. But when the person comes to the chair to audit, he doesn't see you as doing to help him find what was done to him. So now his conscience that coming up also. What have I done to others? So that's why sometimes they are very reluctant to speak, because they're trying to hide certain things. And it's only through the commands that they can finally come clear with you. It takes time to get access to all of that. If you think you're going to get something overnight, or no, you are wrong. You have to be very patient in that field. And this is the same thing also in conversations. You got your friend is telling you something that happened to him or to her. You may dismiss him. Oh man, be a man. Do something about it. But you see, right there, what did you do? You interrupt the flow, and that can cause a friend not to respect you no more because you are not there available. That's it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Brother Lukman, I am so sorry, believers. I didn't give you the greetings. Ramadan Mubarak, everyone. I'm so sorry.
Ramadan
My
Kareem.
apologies.
Ramadan
Not a
Kareem.
problem, Sister Shayla. Not a problem.
Do it either. This is
I'm driving. I'm almost at school, so I have to get off. But for the little time that I was here, I was enlightened. Thank you, thank you, thank you
Praise be to
all
God.
for your contribution. Thank you.
Sister Anya, I found a perfect short video to demo what a backdraft looks like. And as I show the video, I'm gonna narrate it from the perspective of an auditor. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
We'll use
Yes, thank you.
We'll use it as a demo kit. Okay, so let me pull this up. Backdraft. Backdraft. It is. Right. It's actually a pretty good one too. Okay. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, let me explain this out. Okay, so what you see here, this is part of this is like part of the training we have to go through. You're gonna see this, you're gonna see fire going on inside. Okay. Think of this firefighter as the auditor, and think of this box as the reactive mind. Does that make sense?
okay.
Okay. There's a whole lot of aberration in there, right?
Uh-huh.
It's blowing steam. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, so he just shut it. Okay. Open it again. Okay. Letting out more gas, more smoke. And you see the fire is increasing, right? Okay. Go back to the beginning, go over it again, and pick up the additional data, right?
Right. Very good, Brother Luke.
Okay. All right. Is that it? That's good. Okay. So now he stops auditing, but the fire's not out, right? He closed it, didn't put the fire out, right?
Right.
Now look what's happening with the smoke.
Dense.
Okay. It's coming from all the cracks and crevices, right?
Right.
The fire is trying to find where it can find places because it's trying to stay alive now because it's all sealed up. This is a person that auditing has stopped, but they didn't get to the root of it. You see how the smoke is changing? That person is still aberrated. They're still in restem. Does that make sense?
Right.
Okay. So they're still in restem. So we stopped auditing, didn't put the fire out. That means the engram is still active. Does that make sense, family?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. Now watch what happens when this person encounters someone who activates what is dormant in them that wasn't removed properly through processing.
He looks reluctant to go over there.
Yeah. Let me go jump in Brother Lukemon's chest, you know, because you know, now look what's happening. Look at the smoke.
It looks like a demon coming out of there.
Yeah. That's what Jesus said with Legion. And watch what happens. The lull before the storm. See, it looks like it's dying, right?
Ooh, goodness. Yeah.
And that is a demo as to why you don't stop processing someone unless you remove what's in there. Does that demo work for you, Sister Anya?
Definitely.
So we just added some mass. So that's what the reactive mind. That's a three-dimensional representation of an auditor who did not remove all of the volatile contents of that engram. And then that person left and they went home and someone at home said something that pissed them off and they exploded on them. Now, how many of us have exploded on people and that person we exploded on had nothing to do with why we were upset?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Guilty.
Same principle.
Good teaching today. Praise be to God.
Praise to God. So now let's finish up. Go ahead.
But Sisanya had asked also when your PC stop don't want to talk, that means there is something there that definitely too interrelating. This is a perfect time to go in a pleasure moment, and that pleasure moment will give him a little bit more theta work with. So now after the pleasure moment, and then you can come back again to the spot where the person was stuck, and you see there will be most of the time motion.
Yes, sir. Let's go back. Okay. We'll go back to here, and here. Okay. So now, and the trumpet is blown. That is the day of threatening. Okay. So where we left off on that is this. Think about individuals that were out west, and you don't hear about this part of the story. You don't hear about the aftermath of the tornadoes and when people lose everything. How many of those people just decide to end it all and commit suicide?
Wow.
Okay. They lose everything. They lose their photos. They lose artwork. They lose everything. And that's the one thing I had to say to the young lady yesterday. Because she had asked us, I'll go back here for a second. One of the questions she asked was, did you find the cat? I said, I haven't. I'll go back in, I'll check. I said, but the main thing is you're still here. I said, everything else, clothing stuff can be replaced. I said, but the main thing is you're still here. And I said, either you're still here, and then I always try to throw some humor in there to try to, to lighten the mood just a little bit, to get them out of that mindset. But the main thing is you're here. Clothes and all of those things can be replaced. Okay. But the thing is, if a person is severely aberrated and they experience situations like that, do you think that that event right there is enough to make them go over the edge?
Yeah.
Okay. Because remember, the stupor of death, the stupor of death is tied to intoxication. So we say intoxication can be alcohol, drugs, it can be food, it's anything that we use to overcome the extreme levels of emotion that we're dealing with. And as far as a structure fire is concerned, when individuals lose everything, they lose the pictures of their loved ones, they lose the pictures of mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, they lose, the first baby garment, the child's first, what they would wear when they were first christened, you know, that's enough to send them overboard. Okay. In Arabic, Surah 113, when it when it talks about the darkness when it comes, the word gasakin is talking about things that are so excruciating painful that a person wants to just end it all and commit suicide. And that's sometimes that's what happens when a person endures a structure fire and they lose everything. Some individuals never return from that. Okay. And another thing that's taking place in the fire service right now is when you're constantly seeing families endure loss, when you're going into a structure fire and you accidentally bump into a burnt family member, because firefighters are not getting the counseling they need, there has been an increase in suicide in the field of firefighting.
Really?
Oh, brother. If I could paint some of the pictures of things I've seen, those images stay with you. And I actually had to get auditing for, matter of fact, when I was at Flag, an event that I hadn't thought about in a long time. As I was going through my processing, it brought up two events in particular and brought out charge that I didn't even know was there. No, three. I didn't even know the charge was there, that I was still carrying around from 2001, 2002, 2003.
What's a charge?
I still had charge on it.
What is it? What is a charge?
Oh, good question. Charge is whenever you endure or experience a painful situation, your body produces stress hormones. And the stress hormones stay in the body and they accumulate. And I'm gonna use our lessons as a demo kit. Painful events over time, the stress hormones accumulate in a fine mist that the naked eye could hardly detect. And as these things ascend higher into our mind, and depending on the temperature of the currents of our mind, they will fall back based on how heavy the gravity is. Now remember, gravity, the word gravity comes from the word grave, Grave, which means a serious situation. You know, it was a grave situation, right? We didn't know the gravity of the event. Well,
That's what.
the stress hormones accumulate in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. Meaning, when I was working as a paramedic, there was two calls in particular, and I remember the first one was the first person that actually died on me, and I still remembered it, and it hurt me. I mean, it was a painful situation. But I had released some charge on that. So what the charge is this: when you take someone back on the time track, the reason why you have to be so precise in obtaining these perceptics is you make that person relive that situation as if they're back at that time period. And what happens is the more real it becomes, it is as if the person has time traveled back to that event. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
But now what happens is when you bring up the event, you bring up the stress hormone that goes along with that event. And the research has shown that one of the ways that you remove the stress hormone is called adrenocorticotropic hormone. It's called ACTH for short. That is alleviated from the body through tears. And part of Dianetic processing is you get someone to release the charge, meaning you get them to cry about it.
Wow.
Because when they're crying, they're getting the stress hormone out of their system. They're getting all that stuff out of their body. Because stress hormone accumulating over time, it diminishes the immune system. And when you start to diminish the immune system, you open up the person to different sicknesses and illnesses. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So some of us suffer from illnesses, and it's interesting. But when you look at the problems in the problem book, problem 1, 2, 5, and 6, that deals with the uncle and the wife of the uncle. When you look at those illnesses, you'll find those same illnesses on page 65 of Dianetics book 1. Same exact things. So the things we suffer from as an adult are based on an accumulation over time of the stress hormones in our body. Women live longer because women cry. Men are taught not to cry. We're men. I ain't crying. Well, that's why you're dying. So the more we cry, the less we die, in other words.
Oh boy, I better start crying.
Okay. So, but does that answer your question, Brother Craig?
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's why that's so important. Okay. So now here it says, and every soul comes with it a driver and a witness. You see this right here? Every soul comes with a driver and a witness. So now you might ask yourself, well, what could that possibly mean? What could that possibly mean? Every soul comes with a driver and a witness. Now, when you look at the word driver in Arabic, it means to urge, to herd a prisoner, to herd cattle. Okay, so we have something in us that urges us, meaning what? That thing that urges us over to Mickey D's. That thing that urges us over to Krispy Kreme. I just found out Krispy Kreme is connected with McDonald's now. I'm like, damn. Because sweets is the thing that I battle with. The thing that urges us to eat 3 meals a day is something that drives, right? Y'all, okay. Nafs Amara. Remember, there's Nafs Amara. There's 3 Nafs. This is in study guide number, I want to say study guide number 9 is where this is mentioned, the 3 Nafs, the 3 levels of mind. But Nafs Amara means the mind that drives us to do the things that we don't want to do. The devil inside, in other words, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So when you look at every soul has a driver and a witness. So every soul has something contained with it. In the book of Romans chapter 7, it says the law of my mind is at war with the laws of my members, meaning there's a void, there's something in my body that's causing me problems. The minister explained it by saying, I've put something in the earth that creates mischief and sheds blood. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so our body wants one thing, and especially during Ramadan, we want one thing, but the body's like, well, you can fast all you want, but this is what I want. Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
And then when you look at the word witness, so the word in Arabic for a driver, the word is sayakun. Another term is an engineer, or one that drives a vehicle. So there's something in us that tries to control us to do and say and go places that we don't want to go. We might say, I'm going to fast today. And then there's another mind that says, you can do what you want, but I'm eating these pancakes and these eggs this morning. And then I'm going to justify it by saying, I can make up my fast tomorrow. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? We always justify the things that we do.
Yes, sir.
I guess I guess me and Brother Craig are the only ones that do
So I answered.
that. Okay. But then the word witness is the word witness comes from the root word shahada or shahid. And when you clear the word shahid, it one of the words it represents is a notary. Now, what does a notary do? When you go to a notary is someone who they witness something, and in the little notebook they have, they acknowledge that something was done, and they acknowledge it with a date and a time, don't they?
That's right. Go ahead.
That
Yeah.
that could be the file clerk, a
Oh,
driver, and a witness. That means each one of us has something in us that we're supposed to war against. Well, why did God make devil? To show forth and prove that he's all wise and righteous.
Go
That he
ahead.
can make a devil which is weak and wicked, give him power to rule the earth for 6,000 years, and then destroy the devil in one day without falling victim to the devil's civilization. To show and prove that Allah is God, always has been, always will be. Now, input your name in that. Why did Brother Craig make devil? Why did Brother Lukeman make devil? To show forth and prove that he's all wise and righteous, that he can make a devil which is weak and wicked, give him power to rule the earth for 55 years. And then Brother Lukeman's got to destroy the devil in one day without falling victim. Otherwise, to do what? Show forth and prove. Brother Lukeman is God. Always has been, always will be. Does that make sense?
yes, sir.
And that's for each one, that's for each and every one of us. So it's one thing to say, I'm God. Anyone can say I'm a black belt, get in the ring, gotta fight, gotta prove it. It's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback. Okay, but we want to prove we're God, we got to defeat the devil, correct?
That's right.
So every one of us has a driver, but we also have a witness. So there's something within us that we have to fight against, and there's someone there recording the whole thing that's taking place.
Woo.
Does that make sense, family?
Yes,
So
sir.
here you have,
Good teaching.
thank you for Sister Jaslyn. This section, this has sentimental value because I've studied this section many, many times, and almost this whole section aligns with the text and the fact that it comes under the title of the resurrection, Akiyama. And it says, but now check this out. Ayat 22 says, thou wast indeed heedless of this, but now we have removed from thee the veil, so thy sight is sharp this day.
Yeah, I wanted you to talk about that one too.
Oh yeah. So when you look back and it says, thou was indeed heedless of this, but now we have removed from thee the veil. Okay. So we were heedless of the reactive mind
Go
until
ahead.
the minister told us to go study it.
Mm-hmm.
But now the veil has been removed. We didn't know nothing about reactive mind and analytical mind prior to 2011. At least I
Yes,
did.
sir.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
But now we can see in our own life certain things take place, and we can catch it now because it's like, oh, because we have a certain level of understanding of the text. Based on what we understand, we can catch things now and understand it. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Now we can say, wait a minute, that's not even me. Because there's certain things I do, I know that's what my father did. That's a whole nother there's a whole nother process called the life continuum. We take on the characteristics of people that have either failed, departed, or passed away, and they're no longer present in our life. We take on their characteristics to show that that person wasn't a bad person. So we take on certain things. Does that make sense?
Now, what happens if it's bad characteristics you took on?
Then you take on the bad characteristics.
Oh, okay.
It's like in the Holy Qur'an where it says, we do this because that's what our fathers did. That could either be good or bad.
Wow.
Because in the Holy Quran, you've seen that in many places. The prophet or messenger might say, well, why do you believe such and such? Well, we believe what our fathers taught us. And then the prophet or the messenger will say, well, you and your father both are in error. Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just because your father did it, don't make it right.
Go ahead.
If he was as wrong as two left shoes, well, you just as wrong as two left shoes with him. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Yes, going back to the driver and the witness, in the footnote, it says that the driver signifies the impeller to evil. I put it in the chat as well. Signifies the impeller to evil. That's IMPEL LER. And impel as a verb means drive, force, or urge someone to do something.
And what's the first three letters of impeller?
And that's what I said. Notice that the word begins with imp, meaning or referring to a small, mischievous demon or sprite, or mischievous child. And that's something like a fairy in folklore and things like that.
Yes, ma'am. So you see all these words, you start to see connections between the words.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Anya. Let's see.
And Brother Lungmane, that wouldn't also share that we have to accept responsibility for our choices for the driver, like allowing the driver to drive us because our self-accusing spirit is the witness that should check the driver.
Yes.
Wow.
That's called point out the wrong, acknowledge the wrong, confess the wrong, and then repent. Isn't that what that is?
Yes, sir. I would say so. I would agree. Yes, sir.
We got to be honest with ourselves and stop lying to ourselves and stop putting it on other people. Don't blame anyone
Holy
else.
Qur'an says that, brother.
Holy
Qur'an says to be a witness against yourself.
And even though it was something that we didn't originate, we own the part that belongs to us, because now if I confront it, now I can correct it. Or at least go through the process of removing it. But confronting is the first part of the problem. Some of us raise hell and don't want to admit that we're hell raisers.
Yes, sir.
Some hell raising is good. Don't get me wrong. Some hell raising is necessary at the right time. But some people raise hell and it's not even necessary. So now we're aware of it. So now thy sight is sharp this day. Based on our different levels of studying the text, can we say that our sight is sharper than it was prior to studying the text?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next one says, and his companion will say, this is what is ready with me. Then it says, cast into hell every ungrateful, rebellious one. And now when you look at the word hell, there's seven gates to hell. And every word that describes hell is describing characteristics below 2.0 on the tone scale. In other words, we're going to go through something, again, that's going to reactivate engrams, that's going to activate engrams that are dormant, that may be connected to various levels on the tone scale below 2.0. We may have dormant hostility. We may have dormant antagonism. And I know you've witnessed this before. Individuals in the ranks that were so gung-ho with the minister, someone said or did something and they totally reversed and became antagonistic to the minister, correct?
And turned devil overnight.
Yes, thank you, Brother Craig. Turning devil overnight would be the equivalent of keying in a dormant engram. Because that can happen in the twinkling of an eye. Someone can say or do just the right thing, and next thing you know, we were saying Hosanna with regards to the minister, Hosanna in the highest, and then someone comes and a skunk sprays us, and then we say crucify him. Does everyone follow that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So we got to get rid of these dormant things so they don't blow up in our face. We don't get the backdraft. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So was that an acceptable explanation, Sister Jaslyn, of that section?
Absolutely, Brother Lukman. Thank you very much. May I ask a question?
Of course.
When you were talking about backdrafts, what have you discussed what the repercussions are if you leave it open, as far as a person that might be sharing. And then I have another question, based on what Sister Anya had shared with us. What if you're in a situation, which I have been in, and someone is constantly, quote unquote, venting, but their venting is not true. Like, you know that it's not true. Like, they're saying something about a person or situation, and this is and how it has affected them, but the person didn't really do what they're saying that they did to them.
Okay.
But it's constant, but it's a constant, like, something has happened. I know something has happened to the person that causes the person to react to the situation, like, but there's absolutely no there's no there's nothing you can say to turn them away from what they think that this is. And they fell out, and the only thing that I share with a person is that, because they say, I didn't come in here for, I didn't come to this, come in, to the ranks for this. The only thing I share with them, as far as a comment, was, well, if I were you, I would focus on why you came in, as opposed to what you did. What did you come in for, as opposed to what you didn't come in for, and focus on your relationship with Allah. But it was just the constant listening. It was affecting my spirit to listen. So I kind of disengaged myself from the person, as much as I care about the person, but it was ill affecting me. So would you classify that maybe as a backdraft? But also, I guess the other question is, the initial question was, what are the repercussions if a backdraft is left open and not closed?
Okay. I'll see if I see if we can handle both of those.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So if that room is not closed, then that just means that we will. So you saw how that fire was like kind of rolling on the ceiling.
Yes, sir.
We enter rooms when they look like that, but you got to stay low. I have entered rooms that look just like that. You enter the room, you hit the seat of the fire, and you put it out. Okay. The same thing happens in auditing. You got to keep at it until you get to what they call, so the seat of the fire would be the same as the basic on the chain, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so keeping the door open just means you continue the operations to extinguish the fire. In other words, by closing the door and the fire is still there, that means you left something unfinished. Does that make sense?
It does. And I
Okay.
guess I understood that part,
Okay.
but I was just wondering if when it comes to the health of a person's mind and their healing,
Oh, that's what we're about to do.
what are the potential repercussions when that's not accomplished?
Okay. So a person that's still constantly talking about something, there's three things that popped in my mind as you were speaking. One is called dub-in. The dub-in is when there's events that take place in your mind, but they didn't actually take place. It's called dub-in. Number two, in the person's mind, to you, from the outside looking in, you say that could have never happened. But to that person, it might have happened that way. That's why it's called aberration. Does that make sense?
Right.
It does. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the third thing that came to mind is, and this is also in the text, when a person leaves, they say, I'm leaving the mosque. I didn't come here for that. 9 times out of 10, they're not leaving the mosque because of what someone did. They're leaving the mosque because of what they did, and they don't want that to be found out.
That's right.
So when you go into the tech, there's a whole cycle of action that L. Ron Hubbard speaks about with regards to study and why we stop studying. And he says basically one of the first things that happens is there's a misunderstood word somewhere. Does that make sense?
That's correct.
It does, sir.
So you have a misunderstood word. So after the misunderstood word, he says there's blankness that takes place after that. So when there's blankness, then there's no comprehension. But now what happens is the person decides, because when there's no comprehension, Now the person's like, well, this is too difficult for me. And the way he describes it is there's nothing ever too difficult to understand. If something is too difficult, you would trace it back to a missed word. It's just that simple. And I can bear witness. It's a missed word. But then the student will go a step further. They'll stop studying, but they'll say, "Oh, I stopped going there because that teacher, it seems like they're always getting on my case about something. I don't think they like me. I think they might be racist." So now the person is going to try to use the excuse of the other person to justify why they don't study. Same thing happens in the mosque. Oh, I left because of this. I left because of that. No, you left because you chose to leave, but you're using that to justify the fact that you left. But what that person has to do is, until they come to grips and they're honest with themselves, the ayat that comes to mind is, and when they are alone with their devils, they say, surely we are with you, we are only mocking. 9 times out of 10, and I'm just generally speaking, this is just my opinion, individuals will leave a mosque not because of what was done or said to them. It's because something they were doing, and they decided to leave because they didn't want what they're doing to be found out. Does that make sense?
It makes, yes, sir, it makes sense.
Because I can go back and look at a lot of things that were done to me. And this is just, personal thing. And I think I would have been justified saying, hell with this. But the whole time, what I said to myself is, I didn't come here for them. I came to assist the minister. And I'm not going to let them drive me away from what I'm supposed to be doing. Every believer has experienced something being in the nation, but that's part of the process. Minister Farrakhan said there's always a difficulty factor in anything of great value and substance. There's always a difficulty factor. Anytime we decide we want to do something, there's always a difficulty factor. It's like the universe saying, how bad do you want it? It ain't supposed to come easy. Oh, you want to go to college? Okay. Here's all the obstacles you got to jump over. How bad do you want it?
Sure.
Oh, you want to join the nation? Oh, well, write this letter. Let's start there. Write that letter. How many people failed to get their name in the book of life just because they didn't have the patience to write a letter? Just the little things. Allah's always testing us. Oh, you want X, Y, and Z? Let's see how bad you want it. Do men think they'll be left alone and saying they believe and will not be tried? Nay, many were tried before you, that Allah may know your heart. Minister Farrakhan explained it like this. If Allah is all-knowing, why does he have to put us through trials to know our heart? He should already know our heart, right?
Yes, sir.
And the way the minister explained it is, the minister said, the God in us doesn't know. The God in us does not know yet. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said a message to the black man. I can't remember the page number. He says it like this. He said, everything in its infancy, there's always difficulty. I'm paraphrasing it. There's always a difficulty with anything of value in its infancy. The minister used the word difficulty factor. Anything
I love that. And I know for me, I always embrace it because whenever he allows me to face difficulty, that makes me feel valuable.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I strive not to run from it. I really do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, ma'am. I had to just, I was heated last year. I was next on the list to get promoted and the list expired. But I stopped. I said, okay. And these are the rules I try to live by. And you've probably heard this 1,000 times. There's going to be 1,001 because it's very, very relevant. When you look at the story of Moses walking with the wise man, the first trial was the wise man sank the boat, right?
Yes, sir.
The second trial is the wise man killed the child.
Yes, sir.
And the third trial was the wise man repaired the wall to preserve the treasure for the orphan children, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The way I try to look at life through that story is this. And I'm going to use my personal example. When I missed that promotion last year, I said to myself, okay, Allah just sank my boat. So I had to do what? I had to kill the child in myself, meaning when events take place that we can't control, that ruin, or what we were perceived to ruin something that we had planned on doing, the killing of the child to me represents I have to kill the child in myself and rise above emotion into the mind and thinking of God and say, okay, that happened that way, but that was the way Allah wanted that to happen. I wasn't supposed to get.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Praise be to Allah, sir.
So Allah sank my boat. If I can kill the child in myself, he has a treasure being stored up for me down the road. So I wasn't meant for me to get it there.
Just want to see your pops.
I got to kill the child in myself because there's a wall with a treasure underneath it down the road, and I just got to be patient. Allah already has something stored up for me.
Brother Luman, you made me think of Suffy little children that come under me. That scripture, when you're speaking like that, that's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so now, with the way things are, by God's permission, I pray a lot happens this way. There's a person that's retiring in May, and now I'm next up. There's another test right around the corner, and God willing, the promotion will come out exactly around the time period for me to retire. So by Allah's grace, I may still get it on my way out the door.
Retire with more.
Allah sinks our boat, but it's not to hurt us. It's because he sees something else. There's another set of equations going on besides our own individual equations. In linear algebra, you have multiple equations happening simultaneously, and then you have to learn how to produce one solution that can be applied to all the equations. In other words, you're solving all the equations at the same time and coming up with one solution for all these equations. That's how Allah works. Each one of us is an equation, and we might get upset when our equation doesn't get solved. But Allah's not trying to solve one equation. Allah uses mathematics that solves all the equations simultaneously.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. Divine order. Praise be to Allah.
Everything is in divine order, and it's a level of mathematics that we can't comprehend. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Alhamdulillah. Praise be to Allah. Glory be to Allah. I mean, brother, I hope that you are going to post this immediately after class.
I am. This one's going up immediately.
I want to listen to what you just said about the child in us, the sinking of our boat.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get through all of that, then there's a treasure laid up for us.
Mm-hmm.
I need to hear that over and over and over again to help me overcome some things in my life that, personal barriers and resistance with my own foot in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
But I likened all of what was being said there back to verse 16, and certainly we created man, and we know what his mind suggests to him, and we are nearer to him than his life vein. So Allah already knows what course of action we're going to take. So I think it was raised, so why would he have to put us through that? It's because the God in us doesn't know. So yes, Allah is closer to us and knows what our minds suggest to us because he created us. But we also know what our minds suggest to us. We just don't know exactly what we're going to do, which course of action that we're going to take. So we're the ones that have to figure that out. So that's what I saw in that. And if you know what lecture it is where the minister said that, Sister Jasmine, or whoever is on here, if you know that, please put it in the chat.
That said what?
What's this? I'm sorry.
That it's the God in us that doesn't know it.
Oh, okay. I'll see if I can find it. But yeah, I do. I mean, what do we have that we haven't gotten from the minister?
Oh, Brother Lukman said that was a message to the black man.
No, that particular where the minister talked about Surah 29 was based on a lecture. I tell you what, just
meaning the trials purify.
You know what? That might be it. That might be it. Wait a minute. It might be trials purify. Maybe. Let's see. Or no, it wasn't that one. I gotta find it now. I'll try to see if I can find it. Wait, give me 1 second. Let me see. Is this it? So now I gotta look for this. No, that's not gonna be it. I'll find it. I'll locate it, but yes. But real quick, Sister Ani, when you look at that story about Moses, remember they were searching for fish, and then it said they came to the juncture of the two rivers, right?
Troy.
And when they came to the juncture of the two rivers, the fish got away, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's where Moses met Al-Kidr, the green one, the wise man, right? So the way I look at that is, sometimes we go fishing for certain things. And it's like sometimes Allah might use certain things as bait to get us to places where we wouldn't necessarily go. And then once we get there, what we're looking for, we forget what we're looking for because it brings us to something else. And if you look in the footnote, the junction of the two rivers, I believe the footnote talks about the junction of the two rivers represents spiritual knowledge and regular knowledge. In other words, Allah knows how to bring us to certain places that we normally wouldn't go. He leads us to certain places. And then when we get to certain places, that's where he can begin to teach us. Where he might have our undivided attention, in other words. Does that make sense? Justania?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if I'll put a reminder for myself, I cleared those 3 trials and I cleared the Arabic on those. And lo and behold, I mean, there's tech. You can link those 3 trials, those 3 trials, the sinking of the boat, the killing of the child, and the building of the wall. When you clear that in Arabic, it's leading you to different aspects of the tech. The tech is in those 3 trials again. So what I'll do is I'll try to remember it, and God willing, maybe we'll cover it tomorrow. And it'll just add more data to that. But that is something I try to live by. When certain things take place, I just try to, okay, I'll just sink in my boat. There's a reason why it didn't happen now. I just got to keep it moving. Let me kill the child in myself. Let me rise above emotion, realize that if it's meant for me to have, I'm going to have it. Allah says in the Holy Qur'an, whatever Allah meant for you to have, no one can keep it. And what he doesn't want you to have, no one can give it.
Okay, so that footnote in Surah 18 is footnote 60b, as in boy. And it says that it's described here, the union of the 2 seas of human and divine knowledge.
There it is. Yes, that's what I was talking about. Yes, ma'am. Because then when we take on that mindset, then we don't look at certain things that take place as events that just take place. Look at it like this. if the chess pieces had a mind of their own, and if they could talk, they would say, why am I on this square? The chess pieces wouldn't have any idea. But if the chess pieces understood that there was a chess master maneuvering them to victory, then they wouldn't worry about where they were on the chessboard. They would just have trust that whoever is directing us and placing us in certain places, they're doing so based on a plan. So I liken us to chess pieces on a chessboard that are being guided by the Savior that represents the hand of a divine chess master. Does that make sense? Yes, no? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
That makes sense?
Yes, sir. That's powerful. Brother.
Okay. If we know that the Savior and his exalted Christ are chess masters, well, the chess piece is in the hand of a chess master. Yeah, they might get taken off the board for a little while, but they know in the end they're being controlled by the master himself. They already know that they already have the victor. And that's the kind of the mindset we have to have. Things that take place in this life, we got to just realize there's a divine plan. And all things work for good for those who love the Lord. If we can have that mindset, wouldn't that be the same as carrying our atmosphere with us?
Come on.
Right? The assignment I want everyone to do, find the poem. And I know Sister Ani is aware of this poem called Desiderata.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I love that. Yes, sir.
Okay. The habit that I've gotten myself into, and we'll close out on this. It's time for us to close out. I have that poem in the bathroom next to the mirror. So when I'm brushing my teeth, I keep brushing my teeth until I recite. I go through that whole poem as I'm brushing my teeth. That's a new habit I have. At one time, I had that whole poem memorized, and I lost half of it.
Me too, brother. I had it up on my wall, and I lived by that. That was, took me from childhood into early adulthood with those principles.
That poem right there, go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all people.
Mm-hmm.
You can go through that poem. That is the teachings. And it's good to have it on cap, because every once in a while I'll just run through it in my mind. But the main thing is to in this day and time to be able to bring our atmosphere with us, because the times are going to get even tougher. We don't know what events are down the road on our path, and we don't know what engrams are still dormant on our time track. We don't want to be surprised with an event that causes a backdraft, an emotional backdraft. Because emotional backdrafts, I can tell you from experience, when I worked in the prison as a chaplain, there's a lot of brothers doing big time because they had an emotional backdraft and someone got caught in it. And that person was either injured or killed. Any one of us on the Zoom meeting could have a life-changing event that causes us to snap. Can you picture Sister Anya picking up a 300-pound brother and body slamming him?
Yes.
That could happen. That's real. I'm not saying just be a joke, but that's we don't know. We don't know what is dormant within us, and the right spark will cause us to blow up. And we can only pray to Allah that we can unearth those hidden explosives before they go off.
I think I need to read Desiderata for everybody after you said that.
You want to read it?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, read Desiderata, but everyone either print it out, find a copy, keep it close by. These are words to live by. Go ahead, Sister Anya, and we'll end it on this note right here.
Go placidly amid the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, Be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself. Especially do not feign affection, neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, it is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether it is clear to you, and whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be, and whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy.
Words to live by.
And that's by Max Ehrman,
That's
1927.
Max Ehrman. Yep. Yep. So, family, I pray a lot we got something from that. Thank you, Sister Anya, for sharing that with us. Tomorrow we will cover, God willing, section number 27. I will look into my notes because I know I have Surah Al-Kahf, ayat 16 I have that whole thing already cleared. I cleared the Arabic, and I'll try to see if I can have that prepared for us tomorrow. If no one has anything else.
Yeah, dictionary you use, is that a electronic or book?
The Arabic.
Mm-hmm.
I have this copy, which I'm trying to really get away from using because, as you can see, this thing is falling apart.
Well used.
It's time for, I mean, even the page, in the words of Brother Jabril, this one is so used the words are falling out. He said Minister Farrakhan had the Holy Qur'an that he studied so much that the words are falling out. But then if you go online, Hans Wehr, Hans Wehr, Wehr, there's a free online PDF version of it. Hans Wehr. And then maybe one day after Ramadan, one of the things we'll do is we'll go over the Arabic alphabet so that we can start working on the alphabet so everyone can start doing the same thing. Then you can see exactly how we connect all these books together that allows us to find these terms in the Holy Quran and then find the text. So Inshallah, we'll see each other tomorrow. If there's nothing else, let us go ahead and close out in prayer. Oh, Brother Ali, are you still with us? Are you driving?
Yes, sir. I was driving. I just pulled over for a little second. So I've been catching everything, kind of just in waves, if you would.
Okay. You got anything you'd like to drop on us before we get off? Anything, any feedback, any thoughts, any observations?
No, I definitely observation wise, I definitely can a lot of what was said I can definitely relate to, especially when we were going on the topic of, I'm trying to remember the acronym specifically. I think it's ACTH or ATCH.
Oh, ACTH, adrenal
ACTH,
hormone.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that section right there definitely hit a little hard. So I was like, oh snap, makes a lot of sense. So I learned a lot about myself today just from what I did catch.
All praise and due to Allah, then that's a start. That's
Yes, sir.
It's a good beginning. So what I'll do, brother, if you want, I'll include your email so that when we send this out, whether you can join or whether you're too busy, that's not a problem. But at least you'll have the link. That way, if you want to jump in, you can always listen at your convenience.
Yes, sir. That works for me.
Okay, praise be to Allah. So, brother Ali, you have my number. If you can just send me if I don't already have it, just text me your email. I'll put you on the list.
Yes, sir. I'll send that over to you now.
All right, family. Let's go ahead and close out in prayer. Attention, prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful. Master of the day of judgment, which we now live, the alone do we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors. Not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray if they've heard thy teachings. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Ameen.
Salam, family.
As soon as this finishes downloading, I will upload it to YouTube. And over the course of the next couple of days, I will try to index it. So if there's specific things you want to cover, you can go right in the index and you can go to the specific timestamps to deal with specific things. God willing, we'll see each other tomorrow.
And
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Oh, thank you, family.
It was.
Hasta la vista.
Yes, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, family.
Walaikum salam.